Hello and welcome to Politics here on France 24. He came to power pledging to hold back the tide of austerity washing over Europe. But does François Hollande have the power to drive the French agenda through when his German counterpart is calling for more Europe? It may be too early to shout federalism, but moves are afoot to create a banking union and to give the European Commission unprecedented oversight over national budgets. That means Mr. Hollande would effectively need to submit his financial plans to a supranational body that could eventually rewrite it. Is this the kind of proposal that nation-states will accept? To discuss François Hollande's wriggle room in Europe, I'm joined by Françoise Cuignot, Vice President of the Association of Financial Journalists. Hello to you. Thanks for being with us. Also on the set, Marc-Olivier Padis from the centre-left think tank Terra Nova. Hello to you.
Hello.
I'd like to start with you, Marc-Olivier. Do you think that France is going to basically move towards the German position of a closer political union? That's what all these debates come back to, isn't it, really, between austerity and growth?
It was an interesting move, I think, from Germany to put the pressure on France, saying that, in fact, the problem in Europe was not that Germany couldn't decide anything about the euro area, but the problem, on the contrary, was the French impossibility to decide anything about federalism. And I think it's really true. As we saw during the campaign, we had no debate at all about Europe. And François Hollande today is really facing this question. How far does France want to go on the federal question, the fiscal federalization, for example? And I do not know today what will be his answer to that question.
Françoise Cuignot, do you think that the German Chancellor now has the upper hand because she's thrown this ball into Hollande's court, basically saying, what do you want? And there doesn't seem to be an answer to that yet in France.
That's true, but perhaps we're going to know a little bit better about the policy, the French policy, but next week after the summit. But I'm sure, there's something rather not amusing, but funny, yes, we have to say so. We began with a duet between Mrs. Merkel and Mr. Sarkozy, and it was on solidarity against rigor. Then everything changed a little bit because everybody needs some growth. And the punishing manner Mrs. Merkel was speaking about solidarity against rigor changed during last month. So now we have a new duet. And it is, more solidarity with more federalism. But the problem is that French people, and I'm sure Hollande too, is not against more integration. The problem is what kind of integration it will be. But I'm sure there will be a hard compromise between both of them.
What about this idea? I mean, one clear example of this closer political union would be effectively oversight from Brussels, from the European Commission of National Budgets, and the institutions in Brussels would have a say in rewriting budgets. Could Europe go that far? I mean, that certainly sounds like a kind of federalism. Do you think that's possible?
The question has two aspects. Is it possible to find a compromise in a European summit with the leaders of the countries? And then the second aspect, which is, I think, the hard one, is how do you get back to your own population and ask the democratic question about it? How do you accept or not this agreement? And the question is that we don't have much time, it seems. Yeah. So if they find a solution for which we need, I don't know, 2, 3, or 5 years to take it into effect, that won't be possible. But if we have to go very quick, there is also this democratic challenge. How can people in Europe accept something? how will they give any voice to the debate also?
Well, yes, that's right. Time is running out.
But we've been saying that for 3 years.
Yes, that's it.
So this time it's really running out?
I once said this is the last summit, and afterwards it would be a catastrophe. Well, Europe is a strange animal, you know, and going very slowly, strangely. The problem now is that the rhythm of the markets is really not the same, that the rhythm of reform, structural reforms, as you say, takes time, and it's not the rhythm of politics. So just before the summit, we know that every leader is going to how to say, to flex his muscles, and we will have some gesticulations, and I hope we have to have some results to this summit, and I'm sure that everybody is going to make a little pass. And the other thing which is quite interesting is that's not only the duet between Hollande and Merkel. You have now a quatuor with Hollande, Merkel, Mr. Monti, and Spain and Rajoy. And in front of that, you don't have only the Commission or the ECB or the Eurogroup, or Mr. Rompuy, but you have another quartet who prepared this summit. That's the first time that we feel that the institutions of Europe have made their own work, because until now they were running behind the leaders who said, we decided that, and nobody were used to that. So there is perhaps a change in the momentum. Who knows?
So that sounds a bit like more Europe from what you're saying.
Yes, I'm sure you are going to have more Europe. Which kind? The problem for markets, for example, if to be credible, and to be credible, they want to have a credibility, a vision to 5 years. This is a paradox of markets. They run after every second, but they want to have a vision to 3 or 4 or 5 years to be sure they can be confident. But perhaps we'll have a new path. And if we don't have this new path, it will be a catastrophe. And everybody's agree with that.
Yeah. We can also add that for this time, Great Britain would agree to have a step to a more federal Europe because they are not concerned by the euro area. I mean, directly, but their interest is that the Eurozone doesn't break apart.
Of course, there are 3 million jobs or more in Britain that are linked to the Eurozone.
They are strongly for an agreement and a strengthening of the Eurozone. So that could also help in a global negotiation.
Are you really saying to me that if the markets are out of step with the politicians, and I think you're implying that the peoples of Europe are also out of step with the politicians, then all this talk about the traditional partnership between France and Germany, is that now irrelevant because things have taken their own momentum, and in a sense it doesn't really matter what France and Germany decide?
I don't really know. In your, I like the idea of your quartet. What's the role of Italy with Germany? Is it something different? Because in Germany and in France, it is a habit to say, well, we should maybe open and find another special relationship, but it always come back at the end of the day to France and Germany. And this time also, I mean, Merkel and Hollande met in Paris before the summit, and they will come together, and the summit will begin with a common French-German statement. Also, we cannot be within the room. We can guess it will, or it has been so. So I think that the French-German relationship is still crucial. But the thing with the federal issue is that Germany and France doesn't have the same idea of what federalism is. And there is a strong reason for that, is that Germany is a federal state and France is a central state. So in France, we don't have any notion of what federalization is, whereas in Germany, they really know what it is about. And so the Germans have a common position, I mean left and right. They know pretty well what they mean by a federal Europe.
But not only that, I mean, as you say, that they're not scared by federalism because they have the system in their own country, but it's also that a federal Europe would obviously provide for them the kind of oversight to stop the southern countries from overspending. I mean, it aligns with all of their interests, doesn't it? But it doesn't align, apparently, with anyone else's interest. I mean, who in Europe wants a federal Europe apart from, apparently, the German government?
Yes, that's true. But we do have to tell, too, that Germany, for the moment, Mrs. Merkel is not in so good a position inside of her own country. François Hollande has the elections behind him. The hardest work is in front of him. That's true. We are to know exactly which program he's going to, which measures he's going to announce, and that they won't be all very popular. But for Mrs. Merkel, well, all elections have been very hard for her. Her own party is not so in a very good shape. The coalition is not in very good shape. So Mr. Hollande is not so a normal leader as every leader. He is going to try to go step by step to say, okay, we can make more Europe, but we have to accept some better surveillance of our fiscal program. But it will do very smoothly. But he has time, in fact, in front of him on political terms. I think that Mrs. Merkel has not so much time. She has big elections at the autumn. She has to explain everybody that she is the leader. And we feel in Europe she is the leader, but I'm afraid that in her country, they don't feel it exactly the same way. So she's in a difficult situation, more difficult than we say very often.
What does this election cycle force her to do, I mean, in the short term, that she might not do if she could imagine that she's going to be, so to speak, safe in a year or 2 years from now?
Well, I'm sure that I can't guess what's going to happen in Germany at the autumn, but I can guess that there will be a coalition, and it won't be perhaps the coalition that we have today. So perhaps she will have a few years in front of her, but perhaps not with the same partners. And we don't know that the SPD is, more open to the ideas of Mr. Hollande, even if they don't agree on everything. But they are more closer to the ideas of the French president than the liberals.
Do you think that we've mentioned the other possible alliances? I mean, you're saying really, Marc-Olivier, that Franco-German duo will remain. It's a central part of France's policy for 60 years. You don't really see that changing. But you think there's going to be a competition with other alignments, such as the Italian-French one, or are these very kind of ephemeral, temporary kind of positioning maneuvers?
Yes, I think it's rather part of a negotiation within the European Council. Of course, Spain has a crucial role within it, but also you can have a coalition of small countries, like Portugal, Belgium, Netherlands. So it doesn't sum up the situation. I think the central man in the discussion is rather Mario Monti, because he has a very important role in Italy, and maybe he can be a go-between between France and Germany. And it seems that that's what he tries to do. But and also he has probably very good. He's very highly qualified to find, the solution for the markets and so on. So maybe he can play an important role.
What do you think about that, the Italian-French
Yes,
angle?
I said that they made really big efforts, and I think that the markets, well, the discipline of market is not as usual. You have a country like Italy, which has not so bad results, in fact, because that's their fiscal deficit, the primary deficit, after having paid the interest rates of debt, is in a surplus. They made big reforms. Mr. Monti is going on with labor reforms. He's announcing labor reform today, I think. So to prove to Mr. Merkel he's going on with reforms, and not so easy reforms for Italy. So he made his way. And then, well, you see markets asking for very high interest rates. So getting outside, obliging Italy to make more and more efforts is completely stupid. This is completely foolish. But in fact, Mr. Monti knows very well Europe. He has been a commissioner. He knows how to make compromise. He feels well. He's not on the same political side than Mr. Hollande, but I think that they do understand very well each other, and I think that he will help, perhaps, Mr. Hollande to be heard by Mr. Merkel.
We'll have to watch how that Franco-Italian partnership works out, but it doesn't seem to be heading towards replacing the Franco-German duo. So that's where we're going to end this edition of Politics with Françoise Crugnot and with Marc-Olivier Padis. Thanks for watching.